CBS News is reporting that the special counsel, Robert Mueller, may soon issue new indictments. It's not clear who will be charged, but there are indications of it, and some suggest that political consultant Roger Stone may be on the list. Another possible target is a man called Jerome Corsi, a 72-year-old author, and by the way, Harvard-trained political scientist. He's an associate of Stone's. Corsi has said he expects charges soon. What for? Well, apparently perjury. Corsi says he was manipulated into making false statements to Mueller's lawyers, and if that's true, obviously it's not good. But let's put this into some perspective. False statements are everywhere in Washington. That's what the city specializes in, and not just false statements about small things. Barack Obama told you your premiums would go down and you could keep your doctor. Jim Clapper told Congress that the NSA was not spying on you. Clapper said that under oath. It was an outright lie. He was never charged. So the obvious lesson is, as long as you're powerful and your lie is big enough, you are never, ever charged in Washington. No one is. You can wreck an entire healthcare system. You can take an entire country to war under false pretenses. You can kill American citizens with drone strikes. And you can lie about all of it. And nobody will ever think for a moment about prosecuting you. But give the finger to the establishment, mock the people in power, that is dangerous, and they'll get you for that. Jerome Corsi is learning that lesson the hard way, just as Mike Flynn learned it, just as George Papadopoulos learned it. All three and others have been bankrupted and destroyed by Robert Mueller for doing something that virtually everyone in Washington does every day with impunity, lying. So what was the point of all of this? Why are we destroying all these people? What's the justification for it? Well, it was supposed to be Russia, remember? There were foreign spies afoot. There were dark forces sent by Vladimir Putin to destroy our democracy here in America. That's what they told us again and again on cable news. And that's how we were sold on the Mueller investigation in the first place. Well, 2 years later, we learn all fake. No evidence that any of that was real. No plot has ever been uncovered. All we've really learned is that an independent counsel is a handy way to settle political scores, and that a lot of people on the left don't really believe in the tenets of Western justice. Watch as one of them, just today, one of the resident geniuses on MSNBC, explains the new legal standard for guilt in this country.
When Mueller indicted those Russian military intelligence officers, there was a very big hint in that indictment that there was an American deeply involved. It talked about an American playing a role in that Russian interference scheme.
I remember the keystroke intelligence. I remember thinking, anyone emailing with Russians, you're going to be in trouble.
Emailing with Russians, that's all it takes now to destroy a life. It's been enough to destroy Carter Page's life. Remember Carter Page? He graduated at the top of his class at the Naval Academy. He served this country for 5 years as an intelligence officer. And then he made a fateful mistake. He backed the wrong presidential campaign. Page soon found himself accused of being a Russian spy. There was never any evidence that he actually was a Russian spy. Page was never charged with spying. He was never charged with anything. Didn't matter. The ghouls on cable news kept up the drumbeat. Carter Page, Russia! Carter Page, Russia! Before long, Carter Page's life was over. His reputation was gone. Who would hire him now? Nobody, ever. But the ghouls don't care. They're on to the next victim. And so is Robert Mueller. Maybe it'll be Jerome Corsi this time, facing a criminal perjury count. Maybe someday it will be you. They'll make up some official-sounding charge, but don't fool yourself. What they're really punishing is disobedience. Jonathan Turley is a professor at George Washington University Law School, and he joins us tonight. I am confused by the focus on Roger Stone and Jerome Corsi and Carter Page and people who, whatever you think of them, approve or disapprove, are clearly not central players in a Russian espionage plot.
Well, that's the striking thing, is that most of the counts brought against non-Russians are for false statements or collateral crimes. And if the culmination of this investigation will be someone like Stone or Corsi, it looks like you're running around shooting the wounded. I mean, there still isn't a clear there in terms of a central figure doing some substantive criminal act. And this is going to be a defining moment for Mueller in that sense. He's supposedly working on his report. He's closing in on a new group of indictments. And what a lot of us are wondering is if these indictments are going to bring some powerful narrative end to this.
Right.
Because this sort of feels like an Agatha Christie where no one's telling you a thing till the last scene. Because right now, it doesn't look like he has really found central culprits, people who are actually colluding with Russia.
Because if you applied the standards that he applied to General Flynn, whom I'm not defending, I'm agnostic on General Flynn, but just being honest, having lived here all your life, if you applied those standards to any public figure in Washington, who couldn't you indict for criminal perjury?
Well, false statements is the darling of prosecutors in Washington. It is very easy to trip someone up, to go under what USC, 18 USC 1001. And any statement you make of that is false on any subject, a federal investigator can be charged. And they certainly did that here. If you take a look at some of these statements, Flynn's case is really quite weak if you look just at that false statement. I mean, originally, the FBI agents were not viewing that as a criminal matter. Every indication we have is that when Mueller came in, they converted it into something they wanted to indict for. There's no indication that when they saw that statement as being false or misleading, they viewed it as a criminal act. And so the real question for Mueller is whether at the end of this investigation, I do think we can see it from here, are we going to have a figure step forward where you go, okay, I get it. You know, you were on this guy's this guy's path.
If there's a Russia plot, tell me what it is. I want to arrest the perpetrators.
Right, but someone like Stone himself says he's a performer. And to indict him is like shooting a mime in Central Park. He's an annoying character, perhaps, but you're still wondering, why did you wait all this time to indict Roger Stone? And, all the earlier filings said that they have no evidence that anyone knowingly engaged the Russians, and that would have included Stone. So we'd have to see a very new shift in the narrative from the past filings.
I think it's disgusting. Professor, thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. Molly, I guess I'm really struck by the individual. I think we should all care most about the individual. What happens to the American citizen, the actual person? And I'm seeing a trail of people who really have been destroyed, and I'm seeing people on cable television laughing about this, the moron we just played a second ago, this is great, but these are actual people who are being destroyed, and I'm wondering what the rest of us are gaining from this.
Well, and it isn't just about the individual. I think also rule of law in general. There's
Yes.
broad leeway in how you prosecute something. The Department of Justice chose differently when it was investigating Hillary Clinton. They had a lot of people, up to and including Hillary Clinton, on false statement charges. If you read the Inspector General report that looked at that investigation, they knew they had Hillary Clinton on making false statements. She was never charged with a crime, even though she could have been, and this isn't even mentioning that she could have been charged with all sorts of crimes with how she handled her classified information. So you want to not just have fairness in how you handle an individual investigation, but across different investigations. When you see that one group of people gets away with anything, no matter what it is, and another group of people gets brought up on process charges when we were promised, quite dramatically, treasonous collusion with Russia to steal the 2016 election. And that's not a good situation.
One of the costs here is the cynicism this engenders in all of us. We don't believe in the system anymore.
Well, there's a reason. We've talked about how in other countries they find the man and then they find the crime. They decide someone's guilty and then they figure out how it's done. That's not how we're supposed to do it in this country. We're supposed to start with a crime and then work back from there.
Yes.
And that is not, in this case we can see they're going after people who supported Trump. It doesn't even matter in the end how much they charge them with, because the real problem is that they've had to spend all this money defending themselves. They've made it so that it's hard for people to stand up and align
I know
themselves
a
with
lot
Trump in
of
the
them
future.
personally, and I know that they've been destroyed by it, and no one seems to care. I care. Thank you very much.